Hi, I'm ZGALA, the art angel. This is the Head Hutt that I built and wrote a book about. And this is 3 things about 3 people who've inspired me in the last 24 hours. A new segment that I'm trying to do regularly, hopefully to inspire you to think about what inspires you and also to inspire myself, because I almost started off saying I inspire me, and I do, but that's not what this segment's about, at least not today. I really, sometimes I just go off the cuff. Today, I spent a minute or two just now thinking about who has inspired me, and I will start off by admitting when I first started thinking about how I inspire myself, and then the first things that came to mind were people who've inspired me in what I call the inverse way. So, which is related to me inspiring myself, because sometimes people do things that that let's say rub me the wrong way, I don't like, and give me an opportunity to step more fully into the person that I want to be. So, of course, there's always the opportunity to become less of the person that I want to be. But I am continuing to practice. Some days I do better than others. This process of trying to be the person that I want to be. So I just wanted to mention that because it seems relevant to this segment of 3 people who inspired me. I may at some other point do inverse inspirations. I may have mentioned them before, but today I did, upon a brief reflection, come up with 3 people who've inspired me in the last 24 hours, and that's what this segment is about. Those 3 people today are 2 of them are bandmates of mine. One is named Geo and one is named Kirk. And then another is a coach that I pay. I've never met in person, named Simone Grace Soel. She's a wonderful soul, pun intended. So I want to tell you about the 3 ways that each of those 3 people have inspired me in the last 24 hours. And as I mentioned, I'll say again, I'm hoping that this will inspire you to reflect on who and what is inspiring you. And I find it a valuable practice to just take a little pause and think about what is inspiring me and why, and bring it to the forefront of my consciousness. It's one thing to be inspired, and it's another to reflect on it a little bit and think about it a little bit deeper. Why is it inspiring me? And what can I do with that? How can I incorporate that aspect more in my life? So let's start with Geo, one of my bandmates, our youngest band member right now in Kirk's garage band, KG Band, aka Cinch. I'm trying to get us to change our name too. But in any case, Geo is, as I mentioned, a young man. He's in his early 30s, I believe, and one way that he inspires me is that he's a fantastic musician. So he I don't know how long he's been playing. I haven't had that conversation with him, but I know he's a music instructor, that he has a lot of formal music training, and he really brings a lot to the table in our band, and that's inspiring. I want to get at something about it. It's not just that he has a lot of technical skill and talent, but it's that he brings a level of openness, a level of just wanting to play, and a level of leveling everyone else up by his willingness to show up and play, and not, even though he knows a lot about music and he shares a lot of that, he also allows us to be our imperfect selves in a way that I admire and am inspired by. So his musical talent, many facets of his musical talent, is one thing that inspires me. And his ability to have a good time. He's very easygoing and allows us all to be ourselves. So that is the second way that he inspires me. And the third way is as a young man, he carried my guitar and walked me to my car last night, which rarely happens. I play with a lot of men in two different groups, and I'm a strong woman. Typically, I just walk myself out, and it was just really nice to be reminded of, it's not quite chivalry, but it was a respect that he gave to me as a female and as an older female by walking me out, by carrying my guitar. Our another friend of ours gave me a hug goodbye and spilled some wine on me, and Gio took a rag and tried to help me wipe the wine off of my purse as I was getting ready to drive. And all of that just culminated in reminding me how good it feels as a female, probably as a male too, but I'm a female, so I can only speak to how good it feels to be treated a little bit special, to be treated like you're being protected a little bit. That's something that I've become aware that I've craved my whole life growing up without a father, but also I think is something that is very commonly desired and appreciated, not just among females. Like, we all have that aspect in us, and I think it's nice to cultivate that. And so I was inspired by Gio cultivating that in just a platonic, friendly, bandmate kind of way, which really made me feel good and also inspired me to bring more of that to the table myself, both on both sides of that, both to, I don't know if encourage is the right word, but leave more open space, more of an invitation for people to do that for me, and also to do that for other people, whether they're younger or smaller than me, or even if they're not. Like, we all might feel vulnerable at different times for different reasons, and when we can hold space for each other, and even if you're not feeling, or someone, like, I wasn't feeling particularly vulnerable, I'm not scared to go out to my car, I can carry my own guitar, I can wipe the wine off my own purse, but it was very nice to have someone else just do that for me in that moment. And it reminded me of how good that feels when we care for each other, and when we take a moment to take a pause and give someone a little bit of extra security. So there's 3 ways that Gio inspired me last night at band practice and after band practice. And at that same practice, another person I want to mention is another bandmate of mine, Kirk. And I may have mentioned him before. He inspires me often. And one of the ways he continues to inspire me is with his enthusiasm. He has a level of willingness to go, to enjoy life with gusto. It's the reason that particular group of people gets together to play in Kirk's garage band, is named after Kirk in his garage, and he really does bring a level of enthusiasm, not only to us playing, though. You see that in so many aspects of his life. He has some property in Belize, and he was talking about the last 20 years going there, how he drove there one time. He was talking about his walks that he takes with his girlfriend in the mornings. He does 4 or 5 mile walks and interacts with people's dogs, and he was getting ready to go camping this weekend. All of those things he brings a level of gusto and enthusiasm to, which I really find inspiring. So I want to mention that. Another way that Kirk inspired me in particular last night was that he mentioned he stopped watching the news because he realized that it was making him angry. And this is something I stopped doing like 10 years ago or more, because it was just creating like a level of toxicity in my body. And actually in the last several years, I've had some angry outbursts at our band practices when Kirk and I have gotten into somewhat heated conversations. We're always still friends afterwards. We've gotten through it. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have heated conversations sometimes, but or that it's not okay to get angry sometimes. and I'm proud of us that we work through it, we process it, we get over it. But it was very inspiring to hear him, and kind of surprising to hear him express that he had realized that that was something he didn't want to engage in anymore, and so stopped doing it. And you know, we all probably, or at least everyone I know, and certainly myself, I have things that I would say, or that I might even think, oh, I want to stop doing as much, or this doesn't feel good to me. But it's like, it's one thing to realize that and even acknowledge it. It's another to actually change your behavior and do something different. And I'm a big fan of that. And so I was inspired, because again, this is something that having known Kirk for 10 years or so now, I've known him to be, he's passionate about politics. He cares about our country. Lots of reasons that people watch the news. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't, although I I kind of would say that many of us probably should watch less of it. And I've certainly come to the conclusion that I shouldn't watch it, because I am a very sensitive person. It tends to trigger me into an angry state. It makes me feel helpless a lot of the time. And it's not that I don't want to be informed, and I stay informed in other ways. It's easy enough to get the headlines or the gist of what's going on without watching all those details with the soundtrack and the repeating details that are really selected to be upsetting and make us angry and feel sick and disempowered, so that we'll buy pills and crappy food. That's my take on that. But really, it was what inspired me about that was the realization and the shift in behavior that Kirk made. I find that very inspiring, and I aspire to embody more of that in my own life. So it was a nice reminder and a pleasant thing that happened. And the third way that Kirk inspires me is by how much time he spends outdoors. So even though he was spending regular time watching the news, he goes camping with his girlfriend very often. He goes to Belize a couple months out of the year and works outside there in the jungle by the river. He takes this long walk with his girlfriend probably 5 days a week. All those are ways of reconnecting to nature and ways of staying engaged with like the outdoor space, this actual life, which I'm a big fan of that too, and I find inspiring. So there's 3 ways that Kirk inspired me in the last 24 hours, with his gusto, his enthusiasm, his ability and willingness to change his behavior when he recognized that something was not serving him well, and his general tendency to spend a lot of time outside in nature. I find those inspiring. And last but certainly not least is my coach, and she has a podcast called My Korean Mom, so I don't know if I can call her that, but podcaster and coach Simone Grace Soel. She's out there in social media land. She's a great coach, and I have been going through some course material of hers for several months now, after digesting some of her free content for several years. And she often hosts these podcasts and other talks, and in that she does a wonderful job of demonstrating how to be a fallible human being, and by being willing to be fallible and ordinary and true to herself, willing to make mistakes, she elevates herself in this really fantastic way, which again is something I aspire to do. And so I find that inspiring. Another thing that she brings to the table often is talking about diversity and how to counter the culture that is prevalent here in America, which is so often unconsciously and consciously domineering. Domesticating is a word that I use, although a lot of people might disagree with that. But she demonstrates through her words and actions and business modeling ways that we can encourage our all of us, light skinned, dark skinned, male, female, rich, poor, all of us, to check our own biases, and on the one hand embrace our biases because they come from legitimate places, and on the other hand not engage in that kind of oppressive language and behavior that propagates the she uses the word colonization a lot of times. Trying to impose our beliefs over someone else's beliefs, trying to tell someone that they're wrong because they have a different belief than we do. I think it's a tricky thing, and it's part of why it's folded into her being willing to be a fallible person, is because there's no like one way to do it. There's no perfection in it, really. You might have perfect moments of it, but it's really about being willing to make mistakes in the attempt to do it. I think so many of us don't try to do things we care about or that we think are right because we're afraid we won't get them perfect, or we're afraid we other people will criticize us, lots of things like that. And I think Simone does a really exemplary job of modeling for those of us she's coaching how to move forward through that and still in the broad scope be an advocate for diversity and positive change and people being able to be their authentic selves in all of our beautiful, glorious diversity. So I find that regularly inspiring, and I was just listening to something with her in it today a little while ago. My leg is falling asleep, and so I was finding that inspiring again and wanted to mention it. And the other way that I find her inspiring is she has this fire about her. I don't know if it's a Korean thing or what, or a female thing, or just, I mean, I'm sure it's a little of all of that, and also it's just who she is. She's I would call her neurospicy like me, and she's also a coach and a leader and a podcaster, as I mentioned, and a mother and a wife. She's all these things, and she brings a level of spiciness or fire to it. And there was an ironic and beautiful juxtaposition between her talking about being ordinary, being willing to be regular, and also being her naturally fiery self without any apology for that. I find that very inspiring, and I love that I find it inspiring because it helps me remember that I love that about myself as well. So there you have it. 3 things about 3 people that have inspired me in the last 24 hours. This has gotten longer than I planned, so I'm going to wrap it up and remind you that I welcome you to share in the comments who is inspiring you lately, today, this week, and why. What's inspiring you? I'd like to know. I think it's a valuable practice to reflect on that, so I invite you to do that and share in the comments. I encourage you to like and subscribe because that helps me out a lot, and I'm still selfish in that way. Also, it might help you out a lot too, because then you'll be more likely to see my ramblings and my Fit and Free show, which I'm about to get to next. So there you have it. Kirk, Geo, Simone, all those people have inspired me in the last 24 hours. Probably more as well, but those are the first people that came to mind in a direct way. So I thank you for being you. I thank you for letting me be me. I thank you for stopping by. I thank you if you like and subscribe. And until next time, stay curious, stay courageous. If you can, get more fit so you can be more free. And I'll be seeing you soon. Ciao for now.